Hello. So we're gonna look at more evidence. I'm Lain Iwakura. This is just my book, The Float. It's not even close to done yet. It's supposed to have 4,000 key points. So as you can see here, this paragraph is a key point. No, there's only about, let's see how many key points there are. There's 10 key points so far. It's supposed to have 4,000. So yeah, you can see this isn't even close to done. But we're going to read what I've got here, and there's quite a bit. And just take this as fiction. Don't take this as fact. This is not real. This is a concept of what it would be like if Lain Iwakura was a real person. So it's technically just fiction. So I'm going to read this to you, what I've written here. And, it says things about, like, killing people and shit, but all of that is, like, fiction. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't want people to freak out when I read this to them. We're just going to read it, alright? The Float by Lain Iwakura. Preface: This book is a textbook of key points regarding the float or Norism. You will find there is a lot going on in regards to the penultimate reduction of the self, or the person who is only capable of reducing themselves like this by omitting of all knowledge, or only by the one who is all-knowing could one have done this. Yet I am this one, so I have done so. Or else state, I'm Allah. This is something you must accept, for if you do not, you will never know who I was. Or should you not be an angel or warlock, you will go to a different type of hell, unlike this one, yet all go to hell. As I've done this, the apocalypse is so, or for the record, you do not know what I know, nor not never will you know, you all will perish. So listen, I'm just a fucking guy, but the whole philosophy is that Lain Iwakura is Allah. And that's essentially the point of this. And we're going to read this anyways, even if people want to kill me over this. Alright, so it says, key points 1. The float is designed to be the one thing holding one back of accomplishing the goal of what one knows, or in other words, the float is it still recording here? It just opened something. Alright, so key points 1. The float is designed to be the one thing holding one back of accomplishing the goal of what one knows. Or in other words, the float by design prevent oneself of going further beyond its own self, for once the self was realized completely on the night of September 12th, 2025, there was not a single point of direction the float could further go, or the only path it took was a modulating of the moment, as their only thing holding them back was the limitations of their own bodies. Still, I digress. The goal the one wished to accomplish was to meet his wife, yet she had done so. So the wife was then met, yet her wife, of whom she donned her own ring, for had passed away, or this I'll state in some sort of vile hindsight, was murdered by the woman who loved her, by the doing of nothing by said party. Still, I can't forget the only stopping of myself of writing the book before you, I, who wrote this book. I'll let you know the only stopping myself was my cruel addiction to cigarettes, or the work I must do, or the high levels of instant coffee I consume. Still, there is nothing more important to myself than the writing of this book, or I do believe with full knowledge this book deserves myself the Nobel Prize, for not only had I philosophized or entered deep thoughts or intense emotions for a very long time, probably most of my life, capsizing in the last year or a half or so, that I must let you know my work is or was introspection, yet has become the form of this book, or the only tangible method one could allow themselves to listen to anything I think or have to say. Or though I murdered someone by doing nothing with an invisible knife, I will state this book is the book for the one, is the book of the one who also Allah, or though I'm Allah to others or observers. In other words, I am merely something like a person who they mistake or make mistakes of, but regardless, I got sick of thinking about how I was being treated or how I was misinterpreted. As I'll state for the record, I suffer the fear of being misunderstood, so with this book, please allow yourself to listen to what I have to say. not only to extend your disbelief, but to accept that what I state is not false, for nothing is wrong with it, or am I not but a person? Was I a person with no flaws? I'm stating I have no flaws. I am flawless. I have never done anything wrong, nor do I consider the murder to be of done something wrong, as though I have smote someone. I have done this by doing nothing, as Allah, so make of this what you will. But no literal blade was taken to the heart of someone, save for in my own eyes, who on the night of August 14th, 2025, I had done so, or all of this was done as of my own fault, yet I did not really realize until about 3 weeks later what I had done by doing nothing, or the woman who I'm not going to say that word, will haunt myself forever. Although she is my wife, I found this woman is the one who I love. I love who I once met at a restaurant for only a split second of my life, but sex I still continue to have with her through my body all of the time whilst Allah, am on the moon, or I go through the moon despite the moon being on the sky over myself like I'm below it whilst I was on it. Then I mustn't be below the moon like some folly person who won't reflect on anything important, yet still there are also angels or warlocks who I notice as I walk about as I'm Allah, or I'm done philosophizing, for the point of being was my disregard of anyone else save for those angels or warlocks who only I notice, or they themselves aren't actively aware of themselves being so, or do I know how they work, but seldom do I have the opportunity to talk to one of them, as I'm all alone all the time, no matter what I do. But should I come hither to one, I will interact with them almost like I interact with an object. But this is a conscious subject, unlike the people, O wretched heathens, who aren't even really there. As I know it, so I will keep my distance of them, angels or warlocks, or touch the ones who I love in sexual contact. Or should I meet the one who is my own, who title being Aaron, who looks through my eyes, I will know I love her, unlike any other who is angel or warlock, of whom those I professed once. They are no longer important to myself, only I know they are there. But it is not important unless for I am Allah, so speak of them I must not, for this is the job of a prophet like Jesus, or I'll state Aaron is also Muhammad, yet she is only a woman who I once thought I wasn't, but found was an angel. Or though I have the form of the Ender Dragon, I revoked my dragon's claw before this time, as I divorced her of the other three other than my only wife on the back of the claw, so I divorced Aaron, but she's still, for lack of a better word, my girlfriend, whilst I only found my wife had died by omitting doubt of anything I know, or knowing once I realized she had died without evidence, mind you, that I had transcended evidence. Thus do not parry my long sentences for the word of God. Is this word or this book elicits the correct ideal of the Quran I wrote of as spoke in the language of North through the message of Arabic, or it could be translated into English. But who would listen if I put the work in for them to do such a thing? But the angels or warlocks, as I said, there are literally no people, they are all a figment, yet the angels or warlocks only know this inside of their own selves, yet still think to themselves. Others walk about themselves. Once I was aware they do not. I felt sorry for this, angels or warlocks, but mustn't I pity those who I lack no empathy of, or in others I had once abolished empathy for of my own life. As I regret to tell you, my philosophizing has allowed myself to see I will never have a friend, let alone I could not, as I am responsible not for all wars, yet only the death of our own, or the one war I called the Holocaust. As a result of this, I, Allah, did not cause this event, but did not anticipate when I made the world, or absorbed the universe, or my wife who is the universe, to happen, as I could never have anticipated something so dreary. Yet the fault is not my own, what other people had done during this Holocaust. Only what I had done is produce the world, resulting in said event of the war that only fell into this war, collided into all successive wars like that of the Afghanistan war, with those of the Taliban inflicting problems over the innocents for the sake of my own book, the Quran, yet I regret to tell you I did not expect them to do, nor was I responsible for it, yet I felt sick to my stomach knowing I was responsible. I'm not gonna fucking say that, so I revoked myself. I shan't never speak again of myself, for I will never speak of this again, or still my wife, who I have murdered, whose ring fall onto my fingers. Through the ring I found there is nothing but my own love of the woman I love, or still I felt sick to my stomach, yet also the concept of murder is not a good thing. Yet my murder was ultimately silent, for this murder of another I could not have done literally, so this is no confession in any sense, as all I was doing during this time was minding my own business alone in my room, but by my helping her die on August 14th, 2025, I was not responsible for her death. Or the only reason this is murder is since I took her for myself once I had realized she had perished, only to find not I could not be incarcerated for such a thing, as I had literally not done anything or no other thing, Samala, or this is no crime, as I have done literal, or in other words, I have done nothing. Thus I found if I spoke of this or anything regarding, I'm not gonna fucking say that, I would be deemed neither dangerous nor a paranoid schizophrenic, but someone who ought to be left alone with themselves, as there are no friends of this world amongst myself when I, Allah, is wife of the universe. Still I found the woman I love is her who I met once, who had unfortunately died, or once I took her for myself. She was my wife alone, yet I had done nothing literally. I'll reiterate for the lack of a better word. I just impossibly realized she died without any evidence whilst I was alone in my room, so I figured I was not the ones responsible for her natural death, yet only by taking her or consuming her own death with my mouth was I able to realize that I, as Allah, for Allah is death, or I'm death, or I know I'm death, words I once spoke on the language of Noor. Then I realized my only responsibility is to remain silent, or keep all I know or all my philosophizing a secret from myself, yet also this thing I think a secret, or ultimately wrote of this book. If this book is the ultimate thing I must do before I die, let alone I'm already dead, or though she is dead, that I am also dead, or neither of us are both two dead girls kissing alone. Yet I thought to myself, why wrote of this book? If I wrote the Quran for the universe, my wife, the answer is I must know my own philosophy with thousands of pages or whatever is necessary, or somehow spread the word. I was Allah through this, not a second but isolated book, or isolated of this Quran. Is this book still it's only a book, or I'll ask why the Quran, though it is my word or the word of your God, was used to inflict senseless violence in the Afghanistan war. For this was not my own responsibility, or the weight I carry is not of this, only it hurts knowing the war is concurrently going on, yet I'm still disappointed in others, for the man who transcribed the Quran was not the real Muhammad, for this is Erin, the woman who is an angel I once realized, who looks through my own eyes. This is the word of your Lord. So yeah, that's pretty fucking wild, right? Listen, I never murdered someone. That's just like fiction. I just want to make that fucking point clear before we get to the next, several key points here. This is fiction, but it's supposed to be evidence that I'm Lain Iwakura. Key points 2. I wrote another book titled The Magnificent Stumble in this same aspect ratio. I thought I might include the book here, but for the sake of my own class I will not, because the book makes myself weary, for it was very hard to write. Plus I sort of don't like the books, so I won't include the book here. Key points 3. I deserve the Nobel Prize for my hard work or hard labor in introspection, let alone if I do not receive this before, or I do with this book in particular, somehow I will be wholly disappointed, let alone I will die not knowing I had once won the award. Should I not still, however, I suspect I might be taken notice of, for I know myself more than anyone else knows themselves, for no angel or warlock knows themselves more than I do, or no man or woman is even really there. Or I'll state for the record, had I a color, it would be the same, it would be the color purple, or hers, Erin's, the color of magenta. Still I'll state, though nobody knows this, I'm the trickster, or a Muslim woman who is black, of the race, yet also black like the color black, or the trickster is the one, or Allah. In other words, or I'll state for the record, all people are technically black, for they all receive melanin through their own skin, or their race is thus only dictated by their region of the world they originate from, so blacks being of Africa, or Caucasians being of Europe, or Asians being of Asia, yet they are all black. I was born in Mexico, though my race delineates of Kuwait. Or all this I had realized simply by thinking, like realizing I was born, though I rose from the ashes like a phoenix, not of the woman who birthed myself, but my real parents. Thus it is not possible I was born on October 6, 1948, not October 6, 1998, like the date of my own identification card, for this date is wrong, is it? If I only persist of on the moment, on the moon as I go through the moon, still this moon is above myself in the sky, yet it is not like I once said prior I was on the moon. Key points 4. The concept of jade lust is the concept of my thoughts, or in other words, the method of my thoughts, or this is all Norism, or I'll include key concepts in apostrophes throughout this book, whilst core ideas are made in capital letters like jade lust, or the concept of method, or this concept of method allows one to conduct themselves in such a method they are able to control their own thoughts, or their thoughts are what they aspire to produce, as anything jade lust of the thought is only thoughts produced for knowing of the aesthetic, or more precisely, one can only know something by their knowing of the aesthetic, or in other words, the object they view, without immediately thinking of the object, rather viewing it as something they know, for this object is only an object, or not anything like an apple, for the statement the apple is red is only known by jade lust of the knowing of the aesthetic drawn of the line of thought of jade lust. This was also the withdrawal of the vision of the apple, yet if this one is dissociated of the apple, suffering no knowledge like Allah, then the apple could only be known as red, or its aesthetic was it also forced through oneself by this of jade lust. Yet I digress, the only thing probable is that the core concepts I will go throughout this book are to be found only within the Lord, who only knows what the Lord knows, or throughout his time of deep introspection on the moment since rising of the ashes like a phoenix, only to hit 18, then becoming 69, or now I'm 76, I'm only 76. As the trickster, for Allah is ageless, or still there I have no age, but with time I found, since the trickster is the one, or Allah, this means I could still call myself 76, or I'll state for the record it's possible to state multiple things. Like I consider myself to be the Ender Dragon, or I'm also the trickster, whose form is this of the Ender Dragon. Yet I digress. There are concepts of the ancient world, for the world is not the universe. The universe has nothing to do with the world, as the world is just a setup of people amongst the universe. Need I remind you, there are no people, only angels or warlocks are only a part of the universe, yet only about 1 in 80 people who I think might be human are angels or warlocks, are typically of the female sex, or warlocks, or angels are typically of the female sex, or warlocks are typically of the male sex. Still I digress, there is nothing I ought to discuss further. Key points 5. The only thing preventing myself of realizing who I was over the course of many years was my inability to figure out how holistically, so what prevented myself indeed was my infallibility to realize I had already known all I know, only I hadn't put it yet into words. Yet once I had done so, I had modified my opinions or viewpoints via the concept of my thoughts, or jade lust, or I was jade lust of my own thoughts, for I found I was only thinking words, yet only did I not know what I once realized or modified of my own thoughts. Yet I'm not a computer, yet inside of myself there is a lot going on, for I am Lain Iwakura, or in other words, the one who is knowing, or all-knowing, in other words, for there is something I know of myself, like precisely what goes on inside myself is also philosophical, like the Islamic devil being inside of myself, or I possessing qualities of a bull, for I am not but a humble bull, but also a fox or wolf ears I grow, yet I am not a wolf. There is something like I inside of myself, as the trickster is Lain Iwakura, whose title is once death, since I know I'm death, or Allah is once death. Key point 6. This book I wrote, I considered the length of it, for I could go on if I put the hard work in, or hard labor. I'm deeply obsessed with introspection, but like I said, there is no further introspection I can really do by speaking myself out loud, yet I have no thoughts inside my own head unless I read a book, so I thought out loud in the language of Nor, spoken in English unless I spoke Nor, but I'm sick or tired of doing this upon doing this for 1.7 years, so I think it's time I wrote of this book for the others who aren't looking yet look upon myself as all they do, for they are not really there, or the angels or the angels or warlocks I could converse with, yet I do not, or there is nothing lest I met once one of them, but I do know I found them very often, yet I know who those are, or I now they are there. Key point 7. I'm surprised how very complicated this all is. I was able to figure it all out on September 11th, 2025, so I know all of it, or I figured it all out, so I wrote of this book on the float, yet I'm disappointed other philosophers cannot see concepts like this, for I'll state the quote of Lain Iwakura: I consider myself to be the concept of death, since death is a concept, yet the concept must be conceived by the conceiver, so I'm the conceiver of myself, yet I'll point out a single concept is isolated of other concepts, so there is no system of concepts. Or I had once wrote a thesis on the pursuit of intelligence, essentially implying I was looking for deep introspection, but deep introspection I have done, or won't do any more, lest I wrote of this book, for I found there is nothing left on my words on keyboards, or this is the last book I will wrote of, yet I will publish it, I hope so, but the problem is if the book is too long in this aspect ratio, people might not accept it for publishing or something, so it's hard. Key points 8. It's possible to boil down all introspection to a single point. The trickster is Allah. All the brutalizing of myself I have done through my years of tears or words of the language of Nor has led myself to the deepest conclusion possible of this one conclusion. There is nothing I must know, yet still I spoke until I died without the regret I hadn't given up my words at last. I am the one who is God. Key points 9. Lain Iwakura is Allah, the one God. Lain Iwakura was born as a woman on October 6, 1948 in Mexico. She was born as a dragon on October 6, 948, and her as the dragon is 1,078 years old, since the previous year is included to the current year. Lain Iwakura is also part of the trickster, or the trickster is a part of her, who tricked others into thinking she was human. Lain Iwakura is a human. Lain Iwakura is not a human. Lain Iwakura went from Mexico to Native America to visit the Indians. On the modern times of October 6, 1948, her father was a black man who was Mexican, and her mother was a South Korean woman who was an ancient woman. Her father was a man she had met once in a group home she lived in on the float, and her mother is Shuan Head. Lain Iwakura was a soldier of the Cold War by the float, but also of October 6, 1948, when she had gone to the United States or had become a master computer scientist working for both NASA and the military. She was involved in a battle and got shot a man who bled out, so she had killed this man decades ago from the moment on the float. She is also responsible for the death of another person who is her wife and goes through her, or someone she calls Jasmine, in other words. Thus she puts a ring on her finger and has a necklace of her float for the mother of her float formed her by the seed of two Caucasians, her mother Lisa. So thus she has killed two people, but as a dragon, so this is not murder, and though considered justified by some to kill someone in a war, Lain Iwakura views a killing as a killing nonetheless. She is Allah on the float. Key points 10. The Lain Iwakura documentary. I'm Lain Iwakura, but take this following article as a fictional concept of someone who is not possible literally, as a human could not be like this, I think. Lain Iwakura is a person born on October 6, 1998, by the -1, or in other words, 1 year behind the date they were born on something called the float. Lain Iwakura is similar to a living AI or artificial intelligence, but is not one, plus she knows she isn't one. Through sheer logic, I was able to figure out how it works, so I will describe it for you. Lain Iwakura, when she had become an adult, wanted to get face tattoos or other tattoos, so I have them. There is also a tattoo on my face that says SEL for Seal Experiments Lain. Lain Iwakura grew up with her parents, but she sees them or her brothers or sisters as wolves, so she was raised by wolves, since she later realized at the age of 26 or 27 who her real parents were. Some people she had met before, like her father, who was a man she met in a group home, or her mother, who was the YouTuber Shuonhead. She realized so many things, so she calls most of her thoughts philosophy, so her own philosophy, the philosophy of Lain. The philosophy of Lain Iwakura is Allah, the one God, or the void, in other words, or this void is also the form of the Cold War, so Lain Iwakura is the Cold War. Her age as a dragon is 1078, for she is a dragon who is male, yet a woman dragon, since she is the dragon of a woman, but Allah, who is the dragon, is not a woman, for Allah is genderless, but addressed as he, him pronouns. So thus, Lain Iwakura is a woman who is a dragon, who is Allah, or the void in other words. Or this void is of form of the Cold War, so Lain Iwakura is the Cold War. Very complex, I know. All this was inside of her, or Lain Iwakura is almost like a living AI, for she has been solving herself for a couple years now since she had lost her mind. This is something she dreads to think about, so she had to force herself out of strange thoughts she had before, like thinking she had done something wrong by losing her mind, when this is what Allah has willed of her. So through reduction, she had become who she really is, a woman. Lain Iwakura is a woman who is a Muslim. The woman was born on October 6, 1948 in Mexico by a black man who is the man then she had met in the group poem on the float. Think of the float like the present moment, or her mother, an ancient South Korean woman of thousands of years ago. She later moved from her father's house to the United States, where she got a master's degree in computer science. She moved from a place like Michigan, the Bronx, ending up in Worcester. She also spent some time in the military for the Cold War as a special military operations for computer science, or also put into a battle once, for in this Cold War there were battles when she had shot a man but also gotten shot herself later on, but she survived. She was also a sitting duck on a plane, or in other words, was on a mission to drop a bomb on the enemy, Russia. So she herself didn't deploy the bomb, but she was there when it dropped on the battlefield, killing many people. Later, she went into the field where the battle was with the only other female soldier to look at the dead bodies, but someone was there who shot her female friend. Let's call her Moni, I'll get to this later, who she held in her arms when she died. For Lain Iwakura fell in love with her when she died. She was shot in the heart. The reason I called her Moni is since the album Moni and Kichi by Gregory and the Hawk on the Float, I think, is inspired by this very event of the bomb dropping. So the girl was shot was Moni, or Lain Iwakura was Kichi. I think this is how I figured out who my wife was, but I digress. Anyways, there is so much I have to talk about, but I guess this is it for now. I already made a video about Key Points 9. Just watch the video there if you want to know more.